What's going on, everybody? So today I'm going to demonstrate basic CRUD functionality using .NET Core 6 Web API. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is go into Visual Studio 2022 and hit Create a New Project and select the ASP.NET Core Web API and click Next. You can give it a meaningful name if you like. I'm just going to use a default all the way through here to create. And now as we have our project spinning up here, what we're going to be doing today is setting up our Entity Framework core and creating an API controller. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go and install some NuGet packages. So I'm going to right click on my project, go to Manage NuGet Packages. And the first one I'm looking for is code generation. I usually just type in a keyword. If you know what you're looking for, it saves you a lot of time because it's really hard to remember all these names. So what I'm looking for is Microsoft.visualstudio.web.codegeneration.design. So I'm going to install that. That will ensure that we don't have any hiccups when we go to try and create our very first API controller. Okay, the next one is called Brycelem Entity Framework Core.pluralizer. And this is just going to pluralize our DB set names when our DB context is created. Next one, we're going to be dealing with some JSON naming conventions. So I'm looking for Newtonsoft JSON. So Microsoft ASP.NET Core.MVC.Newtonsoft JSON. And now we have two more packages. This is for Entity Framework Core. We need SQL Server. So Microsoft.EntityFrameworkCore.SQL Server. And finally, Entity Framework Core.Tools, which is going to enable us to use the command line here. So okay, now we have all of our NuGets. I'm going to go ahead and close that out. So now we can go ahead and set up our connection string. So the way we do that is in our app settings.json file. Let's come down here, hit comma, give it connection strings, just start typing that. Give it a name. We're going to call mine test connection. And what we need for a connection string, we need a server. I'm using localhost, Express, database name. So I'm using a demo database. I'll show you that in a second. And integrated security. True. So that tells me that I'm using Windows authentication here. I'm going to go ahead and copy that connection string because we're going to use it in the next step. We'll take a look at our database while we're here. So I just have a very simple SQL Express database called demo with two tables, contact and customer. Those are going to be our entities. So let's go back to Visual Studio. Next thing we need to do is go to Package Manager Console. If you don't already have it open, the way you find that is to go to Tools menu. You get Package Manager Console. So this is what it looks like. So right here at the prompt, we're going to scaffold our DB context. And the command for that is scaffold-db context. And in quotes, we're going to put our connection string. So I Control V, I copied that from before. Next thing we need is our provider, which is going to be Microsoft, if I can spell, Entity Framework Core.SQL Server. That's our provider. And then we need two flags. So the first one is called output dir, I should say. And that's going to be models. That's going to be our models folder. You see we don't have that currently over here. What the Scaffolding is going to do is it's going to go and get those two tables out of our database and create our entities and put them in a models folder over here, along with this last flag, which is for our DB context, and that's just hyphen context, test DB context. So now we have our command. Just hit enter and let that do its thing. I'll be right back. Okay, so you can see this this yellow warning down here. That's just basically, and here's our DB context class. So that's just saying that we have a connection string in source code. You might want to get rid of that. And I will show you how to do that in an upcoming video in this series. For now, we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to move on to setting up our configurations for our DB context and naming conventions. So where we're going to do that is in our program.cs file. Now, if you had worked with .NET Core prior versions, probably familiar with startup.cs, where we did a lot of these things. It had a configure services method, and it also had a configure method. Now we have a top level class here where all that stuff is done in here. So the first thing I need to do, and just for brevity, I'm going to go ahead and I already have the code here. So I'm going to give you some time to take a look at it. And is this line up here, builder.services.add controllers? I'm just going to replace that line with the following. And we'll explain this in just a second. So this squiggly, red squiggly here. So I'm going to do a control dot. We need to add this namespace using Newtonsoft JSON.serialization. So I'm going to add that. Now, what this basically does, I had the same thing as that I replaced, add controllers. All I did was chain this to it, this add Newtonsoft JSON. And what this does, this contract resolver naming strategy thing, is it prevents .NET Core from changing like our column names. You know, when it goes to create a JSON object, when you start working with Angular, you know, and consuming this API, you're going to want to make sure that the JSON object that's returned from this API matches whatever your table, your casing for your models on the Angular side. So for this, you don't have to do this, but I don't really want .NET Core changing anything. So that's the first thing. And the last thing we have to do for now in here is to configure our DB context. So once again, I'm just going to copy this line right here and paste it. And let's go through it. We'll add the namespaces. So test DB context, that's in our models namespace. So control dot and add models. And also use SQL Server, that's our provider. That's Entity Framework Core. So, and this is just basically we're telling the runtime to use this DB context, use SQL Server as our provider, and use this connection string that we defined in app settings, test connection. So I'm just going to do a quick build, and everything's good. We are ready now to finally add our API controller. So what I'm going to do for that is right-click on the controllers folder, go to Add Controller, go to API, and then select API Controller with actions using Entity Framework. Click on Add, and now I just need to select one of my entities. I have two entities. I have Contact and Customer. I'm just going to go with Contact and select my context, and it's going to create our contacts controller right here. So I click Add. Be back in a sec. Okay, we're back. So it's created our API controller here. And now we have all of our CRUD methods. So we have a list. It returns in a numeral. So we have a list of contacts. So that's going to be all the contacts in our table. And we have one that's going to get by ID. It's going to get a single contact. We have one for put. Put is the same thing as update. So it's basically update contact. Post, that means insert or add, and delete is self-explanatory. So in the next video, we're going to actually go ahead and test this out using Swagger UI. So when I hit Control F5 here, what it's going to do is this .NET Core is configured to use a Swagger UI, which I'm showing you right here. And we will go into this in the next video where we're going to test all of our methods and verify any of the post, put, or delete methods as they affect our database. So if you like this video, Go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.